The interesting thing about talking about wisdom as the nexus between God's character and our real life is that all of real life gets drawn into that moment, and all of God's character gets drawn into that moment. And so that means that, that God's character, God's heart, which is always a heart that reaches beyond itself, always a heart that continues to move out and to, motivated by love, continues to draw people into this redemptive, compassionate moment where justice flows down, where we understand mercy and all those kinds of things. That's God's heart. And in that moment, when true wisdom is born, it's always born in that. God's heart is not just sort of the proclamation of truth so that people feel good. God's heart is always God's character, which invades people's lives and helps them to walk in ways that are more complementary of what the heart of the Creator, Redeemer, Sustainer is all about. Now, how does suffering get brought into it? Well, it gets brought from the other side of the equation, because all of who we are, all of our experience and the experience of all of humanity gets brought into this equation, this nexus point between God's character and our experience. I mean, I love to teach wisdom. I sort of like the idea of the theological ambiguities and all of those things that attend to our walk of faith in the world. But one of the things about wisdom literature in the scriptures is that it's full of point and counterpoint, of saying, yes, life is like this, but wow, it's not always like that. Sometimes it's like this. And when it's like this, God seems to show up in different ways than when it's like this. These are both realities in the community which are held in a certain kind of tension. There's a lot of tension in wisdom that is not only the tension between who God is and who we are, but this tension between the vast differences of the experiences of humanity. So when real wisdom is being born out of this moment of preaching, it means that that good preaching will always bring the whole of human experience, or pushing edges, always pushing out toward the greater whole of human experience. And good preaching will always be pushing out toward the manifold ways in which God interacts with humanity, and will always be pushing us in that special wisdom moment to exhibit God's character more in the world. So preaching in that situation can never be an exercise which is simply building the club or helping us to feel good so that we can, about ourselves. It never can be, because that's never the extent of what it is that God's character is trying to do. God's character is always about incarnation. Wisdom is, nexus is another way of talking about incarnation. God incarnates God's life, spirit life, resurrection life, Christ life. God incarnates that into humanity. That's the wonderfully complex, simple, big idea of what the church is. It's this group of people who begin to embody Christ's life. And that means that the community of the Trinity, the heart of love of the Trinity, the mission of the Trinity, all gets also fleshed out in the heart of a congregation. And where that's really happening, where wisdom is growing in congregational life, you find people who the only way you can describe them is these particular ways in which, through their own particular personalities, or even the own personality of a congregation, it begins to smell and feel and taste like, like something which is eternal.